This is what the class is today. Let me move this little window here to get it out of the way a little bit. Okay, it's this is the 14th Sunday of Pentecost. Pentecost is the longest season. It goes from the end of Easter through Advent.
There are different phases of it too.
Yeah, but we're stuck in Pentecost, which is also known as normal time.
Okay. Like Christian living.
Well, yeah, it's basically the work of the Holy Spirit is what this is all about for 6 months. Anyway, today's discussion, though, is not Pentecost. It's actually the trials of Jesus. We did the trials of Jesus before the Sanhedrin on last Sunday, and today we're going to learn why nobody names their sons Pontius.
Not even their dogs.
Yeah, the name Pontius Pilate is, you know, we say it in the creed every week. Suffered under Pontius Pilate. So this is the guy who at least gets the blame. He's not alone in the blame, but he gets blamed.
It was
A Pilate.
That's spelled different.
Remind me sometime when we're not pressed for time to talk about the Pirates of Penzance. I love that. I love that.
They never was introduced. Was named Judas.
Yeah, Judas is not a popular name either. Yes. Judas and Pilate, yes. Anyway, today's material. We are in chapter 23. As I said, we already did the first half of the trials. He was taken the night he was arrested to the chief priest. It's not clear. You get different versions in the different gospels. There are two people who are in the chief priest category, Annas and Caiaphas. They are involved somehow, both of them. In Luke, it just says briefly he was taken. The Sanhedrin deals with him. That was our discussion last week. And they find him guilty of blasphemy. And from their perspective, he was guilty of blasphemy. From their perspective, he claimed to be God. That's blasphemy. From our perspective, that's not wrong. He is God. So I'm not saying that he did speak blasphemy. The Jews believed he was guilty of blasphemy.
Jim, are you saying that Jesus' trial was unfair?
It was unfair to Jesus. He didn't do anything
It came to the
wrong.
wrong conclusion.
Yeah, he didn't.
Well, I am toying a little bit with the idea. I mean, obviously the tradition is that we blame the Sanhedrin and we blame Pilate for crucifying Jesus. But all I've said was, from their perspective, a man who claims to be God is blaspheming. That's all. But the Jews have a problem. They're not allowed to kill anybody. Go ahead, you had a point?
Like you're saying, that what would most likely happen if somebody's claimed that, like someone said, I'm God, like from our religion. What are most people going to say? Most people are going to get a little irritated.
You mean now?
Yeah.
If somebody came out, we would label them as blasphemer. We may not use that term. We would probably say they were nuts.
Mad.
We would just say they were nuts.
That's very technical.
Yeah. So I guess I'm being nice to the Sanhedrin. They believe they have found a blasphemer, and they would like that blasphemer to be killed, to be executed, because that's the penalty in the law of Moses for blasphemy.
Did he perform very close to the Sanhedrin?
No, they asked for a sign, or was that Herod? Herod actually asked for a sign.
Healed the man with the word of the arm, he says, stretch out your hand and heal.
Yeah, he did healings,
They saw that.
but not in front of the Sanhedrin. That was not the purpose of that. Anyway, the morning starts with, he's been found guilty by the Sanhedrin. And in chapter 23, verse 1, the whole assembly, that's referring to the Sanhedrin, is on its way with Jesus, with Jesus to Pilate. Pilate is in Jerusalem because before the internet, if you were responsible for the region, this was Passover. This was a big deal. Crowds of people into Jerusalem. You wanted to be where the action is. If you're in charge, you want to be able to be in charge. So he and his entourage arrive in Jerusalem. Herod does too. Herod's responsible for the area. So that's why they're both in Jerusalem. They're not normally both in Jerusalem on any given day. Go ahead.
Well, just to make the point, this isn't Herod the Great, who was alive when Jesus was born. This was Herod Antipas, his son, who was just as vicious and vile as Herod the Great, but not so great.
But the Herod not so great. Okay, yeah. Now, okay, what the Jews are hoping to do is accuse Jesus of crimes that will make him guilty enough for the Romans to execute it. And here are the charges. They happen right away.
Pilate didn't want him to be crucified. He said, I find no fault.
Yeah, that's what we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Okay, here are the charges. He's subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Christ the King. Those are the three charges. Was he subverting the nation?
What does that word mean?
Well,
Advocated revolution.
revolution. Yeah. Was he fomenting? Was he attempting to lead a rebellion against Rome? I think the facts are no. He was not. He was not guilty of the first charge. In fact, whenever the crowd seemed to come around him to quote make him king, he would disappear. Anyway, he opposes payment of taxes to Caesar. In fact, that's exactly the opposite. Remember his quote?
The coin had Caesar's.
And so what's his quote?
Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar, and render unto God that which is God.
Render under Caesar. See, this is good stuff. So he was not guilty of that. His advice was the opposite. If you owe an obligation to Caesar, pay the obligation to Caesar. No problem. Claims to be Christ the King. I'm afraid we've got him there. Jesus is guilty of claiming to be the Christ the King.
The Christ, meaning the Messiah,
Yes.
He could not deny himself.
probably wouldn't be that upsetting to the Romans.
Well, that's
if he
it.
were the Messiah.
So notice here, we've got three charges: subverting the nation and payment of taxes. Both of those would be a problem for Rome, but we don't see we don't see the debate on those 2 points here in the scripture. But apparently, Pilate agrees with us. He's not guilty of either of those. But the next one claims to be Christ the King. That one gets some more discussion. All right, did you want to ask something? No. Okay. So Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the King of the Jews?" That seems to be the one that he's willing to talk about.
That's a threat to him then.
Well, or at least his boss, the emperor in Rome. Yeah. Now, you would think Jesus doesn't have a good attorney here. He says, yep, that's it. It's just as you say. I can't get my mouse to select it, but you can see it. Yes, it is as you say. So I am a king is the answer. Now, honestly, I would think that might have been enough to get Rome upset, but it turns out it's not. Rome has enough authority and power, I guess, to do whatever they want. They have no, what's the right word? They don't care about this Messiah stuff.
They had lots of gods. What's one more?
Well, that's another way to say it, right? Because Pilate says, I find no basis for the charge against this man. Even though he just admitted, I'm Christ and I'm a king, Pilate says, there's no basis for a charge. So I think it's kind of like what you're saying. We don't care about this Christ stuff. That's nothing.
You know, like I was wondering, as just over the weekend, what if there was no love lost between Pilate and the Jewish higher-ups, right? They were always scrapping about something. And Pilate was there because Jewish were a rebellious people anyway. That was his job, was to keep order. So what if the Jewish leaders came and said, you know, you've got to do this for us because we can't do it. And they expect that he'll just say, fine, go ahead and kill him. What if Pilate, just out of contrariness, were to say, no, I don't see any problem.
Yeah, well, and he does try to start that way. I don't see a problem, is what he says. Now, they're going to...
Knowing that would infuriate the Jewish leaders.
They're going to push him until he finally gives in. You're going to see that here. But it does start this way. And of course, we all know that that's not how the story ends, so he gets crucified. But if Pilate had stuck to his guns, well, then we would have a different story.
Yeah, the fact that Pilate stuck to his gun probably means that he was serious, that he really didn't see any guilt in the man, which makes Pilate even more guilty for giving in in the end.
Apparently, Pilate is willing to crucify an innocent man just to assuage the mob.
Yeah.
He had no choice, though. All the people said crucify.
The mob gets louder and louder and louder, and the Roman is saying, no, we can't have this.
Well, he knew that he blew it because in Matthew, he washes his hands.
Yeah.
Symbolizing that I'm washing all my guilt away.
It's not me, it's you. Yeah. Okay, but now watch this. He is just, Pilate has just said he's not guilty. But the people say, wait, he stirs up the people all over Judea. Oh, Judea. That's Herod's territory. So Pilate tries to duck. He says, oh, good, this is good. If I can get out of this guy belongs to Herod, send him to Herod. So now suddenly we're in a different courtroom. We've been moved from one place to another. Okay, so now we get to talk about Herod. As you said, Herod is not a good guy. But anyway, this one starts strange. He was pleased to see Jesus. He's heard a lot about him. Jesus was making a big splash in the region. People knew his name. But maybe they hadn't seen him do his miracles. And he wanted a miracle.
And he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't.
Hope to see him perform some miracle. He plied him with questions. Jesus doesn't engage at all with Herod.
Did you notice, excuse me, Jesus doesn't really engage with anybody.
He answers that one question from
He
Pilate.
doesn't defend himself.
No.
It's almost as if Jesus is saying, fully on all your accusations. I'm not even going to dignify them over this. You buy that?
That was his mission to die for all of us.
Well, yes, that's-
He knew they were going to do that.
That's the point, isn't it?
The scene I
He's
see here,
sticking to his mission.
the scene I see here is Herod's asking questions. Maybe legitimately trying to get to the truth of the question. I don't know.
How a police officer?
Well, he's just trying to, yeah, he's trying to get to the truth. And Jesus is just stone-faced. He's not giving any ground.
Of course, remember, that same Herod beheaded his cousin, John.
Yeah, for a ridiculous reason, so, yeah. Okay, but during this debate, well, it's not a debate, it's one side, Herod's asking questions. Jesus is not responding. You can see the Sanhedrin over on the side shouting the charges. See the sentence? The chief priests and teachers of the law were standing there vehemently accusing him.
Wow.
So Herod's trying to get at the answers. Jesus is not giving him any answers. The Sanhedrin is yelling from the sidelines, this is what this guy is doing. There's no transition here. We don't know why Herod goes from being interested to allowing him to be ridiculed and mocked, dressed in the elegant robe. But the point is, he sends him back to Pilate. He's not able to resolve the legal question. There's no word here like Pilate said, I find no guilt. Herod, the end of it for Herod is Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked. It doesn't say he found him to be innocent. He gets
Then we
sent.
come to that heartwarming verse,
Herod and Pilate are good buddies.
isn't that one?
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's the kind of line. That's why people probably don't name their kids Herod anymore. They don't name them Pilate. They don't name them Judas and Herod. I don't know. That may not be true. They became friends. The Bible doesn't have anything good to say about Herod and Pilate. Doesn't have anything good to say about Judas either.
There was another Judas that was a.
Yes.
Judas.
Yeah,
When
one of
you
them.
say Judas, you always say Judas.
The one who betrayed him.
No, the
When you're listing the disciples,
The other
Judas, the one who betrayed him. Right.
The other Judas.
Okay,
They became friends.
they became friends. Isn't that nice?
Yes.
Okay, Pilate's now back in charge. Called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people. This time it includes the people. So I've seen the movie. He's out on some porch kind of area, patio area where there's a crowd of people in a courtyard before him. You brought me this man as one who is inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for your charges. Neither has Herod, for he was sent back to us. He is, as you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. You'd think that'd be the end of it. Case dismissed. Right? That case dismissed.
They brought him to the Roman court. They said,
But then you get this sentence, therefore I will punish him and then release him. You know, we're a little bored today, so we're going to flog a man. Yeah, but this is not a minor thing. Scourging could sometimes cause death. It was horrible. And again, I've seen the movie. If you want the bloody one is Mel Gibson's Passion of Christ. If you want to see whatever they can do to make that look as horrible as it sounds, but you can,
see it again.
huh?
I don't want to see it.
No, it's awful. The point is, It's almost a death sentence. It's not quite a death sentence.
Many died.
Yes. Yeah.
39 lashes.
Well, that's what they used to say, 39 lashes, which is one less than death. 40 was supposedly a death sentence, so they give you 39 lashes? That sounds fair. Anyway, especially when he just said he's innocent. Therefore, I will punish him and then release him. I just never understood that part.
Well,
If he's innocent,
and then release it.
oh yeah.
So in other words, that ought to do it for you guys, right?
They seem satisfied, he's suffering.
Now,
Not gonna be
Luke-
satisfied until he's dead.
Luke now gets into the Barabbas story. Apparently, the Romans would release a criminal. I'm not sure why that makes much sense. But on the celebration of the Passover, they would help celebrate by releasing a bad guy. Anyway, so Pilate thought maybe the people would take Jesus. And the chief priests and the Pharisees have already whipped up the crowd. So the crowd yells for Barabbas, which surprises Pilate. Away with this man, release Barabbas to us. And he was in prison for even murder. Pilate tries again.
Could I just
Go ahead.
introduce one note on Barabbas? You've got two parties for judgment.
Yes.
And the one that is free would be really the first person to be saved by the death of Christ.
Oh, boy. I see what you're saying. Because Jesus dies in the place of Barabbas, Barabbas is the first person freed by Jesus' death.
Whatever happened to Barabbas? He lived old age and
There's a movie.
I saw the movie Barabbas on television. He turned to be a Christian.
Well, that's what they say. I don't
I
know.
don't know if that's true, that's not the
The
law.
Bible doesn't tell us, that's right.
Makes a good story.
Anyway, remember when we started Holy Week, we talked about this? The crowd goes from singing Hosanna on Palm Sunday to yelling, crucify him by Friday.
There's some question as to whether it's the same mob.
Okay,
Maybe some,
Sure.
but I can believe that.
Well, in any
they brought
given
in
city, yeah.
Some inputs.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm just trying to defend all those people who were glorifying him and celebrating him, suddenly turning completely about face and saying crucify him.
That's fair. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know who was in with both crowds.
I was like, oh, I didn't even know.
Pilate tries again. Why? What crime has this man committed? I have found in him no grounds for the death penalty. Then he repeats, therefore I will punish him and release him. With loud shouts, they insistently demanded that he be crucified, and their shouts prevailed. So Pilate decided to grant their demand. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder. That's the Barabbas story, the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will. So,
Andrew had something to add.
go ahead, Andrew. I didn't see your hand.
Yeah, I study history. Romans do a lot of torture, that's what they're really known. Maybe because the crowd, like, you know, how people watch boxing and they see blood. I think it's because they just want to see a bloody gruesome.
Well, except in this case, I do think Pilate is affected by the crowd, for sure. But in either case, they're going to see bloodshed. Remember, Barabbas would have gone to the cross if the story went the other way. That's one. And two, there were already two thieves on the cross. So there was already blood. If you wanted to see a bloody death, you could see it. I think the real issue for Rome, or for Pilate, was it was Passover, and he is supposed to keep the peace. People are getting rowdy. They're yelling at him. He doesn't want reports to get back to Rome that Jerusalem had a problem. It was a riot. I think he gambles here that killing Jesus is the quiet thing to do. It will bring peace. Little does he know, right? He doesn't know what he's speaking about, but it's true. Jesus' death does actually bring peace, not the way he considers it.
Your point is still true about Romans liking blood sports, like in the Colosseum.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the gladiators and Christians.
But again, on any given day, outside the city gates of Jerusalem, you could see somebody dying of crucifixion. If you wanted blood, there was plenty of it.
That's also a warning. Don't let this happen to you, so people can see these.
That's why they did it.
Yeah.
Right on the main drag, right into the city, were people hanging on crosses. Anyway, notice where that gets us. That's the end of the trials. They have decided to send Jesus off to crucifixion. And for next week, we pick up with verse 26. And they're walking to Golgotha. And that's where we get the Simon of Cyrene story I love. But anyway, let's reminder, look for my email this afternoon. It's going to include that those initial questions about the Bible. And that's not for next week, it's for the week after.
And are they to check ones that are interested in?
Well, not that. It's not a formal survey.
What is a response requested?
I don't know. Tim and I are sending you over 30 possible questions you could ask about the Bible. If any of them pop out at you, you're welcome to share them with me and Tim. But I'm not trying to formally take a survey of the group. I'm not really trying to find the top 5. But does something cry out at you about how the Bible works and what do you do with hard questions? But anyway, so next week is crucifixion, and the week after we will start hard questions with an emphasis on the Bible for the first week.
What do we do about people that are not coming, that are usually?
Well, they get my emails, that's all I can say. I send an email after every class. And that's how I include them. For example, I knew the Penningtons weren't going to be here today. That's all. Bill is online. That's what the green circle is.
I spoke with the Langles at the service.
Oh, okay.
And they might be coming.
Good. We end each class with the Lord's Prayer, so I'm trying to get my mouse to work. Let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So, well,
Come next week.
I'm gonna come every week. There you go. You're the one who caught me. I was walking down from my other church to watch them back to the Lutheran church. I did that actually. You witnessed me, yeah. You did.
Jim, do you have access to email?
No, I have the I don't believe in computers.
You don't believe in them? Well, I believe they exist. I just don't trust them for my salvation.
People on the street, they're looking down like that.
I know,
On
I
the
know.
street, cars are coming.
We'll print up one of these.
Yeah, I'll print it. Next week I will have some printed versions.
I'll be here next week, unless we have a hurricane or something.
Next week, the congregation is celebrating Pastor Mentzer's 25th anniversary of ordination.
I used to think pastors at 25 years were old, but now I realize how young they really are.
Just getting
The
started.
first 100 years are the hardest.
First, how many years?
First Well, people used to ask me, how long have you taught? I tell them 40 years. They looked at me like, you're out of mind. Anyway, I'm going to turn off the share. Not that it really matters, I think. Maybe I already did. I'm going to end the recording. See you, Bill.
See you, Bill.
Have a blessed week. Thank you.
See ya.